Hi everyone and welcome back. You're watching The Money Show on ET Now. Well, as we face, of course, a second and a more scarier wave of the pandemic, we've once again locked ourselves at home, continuing our work and other activities from home. So, natural fallout is the fact that our automobiles now continue to be in stationary mode. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the impact of this lockdown on your next vehicle with Hormazd Sorabjee, editor of Autocar India. Thanks so much, Hormazd, for joining us today. Hope you're keeping safe amidst this pandemic. So to start with, Hormazd, what are the possible ramifications of having a automobile that stays stationary for weeks and months at a time?
Well, I think, but to be honest, most automobiles, they are, how do I say, they've been pretty well designed right now. I remember last year also that people hadn't driven or started their cars for 6 weeks or more, and they started first shot. So really, I think, there's not too much to worry about. But I mean, you do a few simple things like I would typically overinflate the tires if I'm not going to drive the car for more than a month. Because then the tire doesn't get deformed. It doesn't take the weight of the car in that one spot. And that can happen. Not always. It's good to just start the car every couple of days. So you get the oil flowing, you get the battery recharge and stuff like that. So I think just very basic stuff to do, because today's modern cars, they have good electrical systems, they have good lubrication systems. So all the issues they've had earlier, it shouldn't be there right now. I think, I think just going down, starting the car every couple of days, that should do it.
I was actually reading a very interesting article on this topic on Autocar India. One of the tips that you've shared is avoid engaging the handbrake. This is almost like, it's like a daily practice. I do it every time you drive the car, you put it into park, and it's almost a reflex that you pull up the handbrake. Why would you recommend avoiding doing that?
To that, you only do it if it's in a flat place, obviously not on a slope, because then it becomes a safety issue. I think what you do is when you pull up the handbrake, your brakes, especially at the rear, which are typically drum brakes on a lot of car. The brakes are fully engaged. And if you leave it like that over a long period, couple of weeks, and especially with the monsoon coming and moisture builds up between the drum shoes and the drum itself, it can get a bit sticky. So that's how it is. Sometimes it tends to get jammed. So the trick is you have to, drive the car a bit in reverse. So the torque effect on the shoes is in the opposite direction, and that releases it. This is mainly there for older cars, to be honest, which have pretty old braking systems, and this problem tends to happen there. But again, that's just another precaution.
And yeah, of course, goes without saying that this is only if your car is on a flat surface. If it's on a slope, then obviously you have to keep your handbrake pulled, pardon me. Let's talk about this lockdown then, Hormazd, because, it is something that's going to... Based on, the conversations you may have had with car makers in these last few days, are any of them anticipating delays in their production schedules, which in turn could lead to, a longer waiting period for new cars for customers?
Well, definitely, I think production will tend to get hampered, and obviously that would typically lead to a long waiting period. But at the same time, if the demand goes down because people are again worried, going into a lockdown, people tend not to buy cars in that period. They tend to buy cars when they see some visibility, some hope, and things are unlocking. So I think, the supply constraints might be kind of balanced out with a drop in demand as well. And as we know that, April is not looking good. April is turning out to be awful April, not as bad as last April where sales were zero. But again, this April compared to March is going to be pretty bad. And I think, everyone's bracing for impact again. The surge is much worse this time, but the draconian lockdowns are still not there. One never knows the way things are going. They might come back into place. So really things are very, very unpredictable. And I think it's this unpredictable situation which is eventually going to have a dampener on impact on demand as well.
And this also at a time when car makers had a whole series of new launches coming up. Again, another article spoke about all these new launches that were expected in the summer of 2021, some facelifts, some new variants as well. Do you think that any of them could be, pushed back, or customers will have to wait a little longer to see those?
Absolutely. I think one big launch which you were expecting, not a mass car, is the Skoda Octavia that was to be launched in the last week of April. That has now been pushed to May. So that's not happening right now. The Hyundai Alcazar, well, not really happening in April, but happening in May. But again, that, could be pushed again. So it definitely is going to have a knock-on impact because, I think these sort of disruptions, they really kind of, play havoc with timelines. And in that sense, the manufacturers all, scurrying back to their teams and meetings to figure out what's the best way to launch a car under these conditions. Obviously, they've had experience in the past, but, again, this is a very different kind of surge, a different kind of wave. It's much stronger. And I think, people are going to be taking a more kind of a cautious approach going forward vis-a-vis the launches. So I think we will see some delays going forward.
Hormazd, thank you so much for joining us today on the Money Show. I'm sure all of your tips will definitely easy to implement that too for all of our viewers, and just getting a sense of what we should brace ourselves for as we enter yet another round of lockdown.
Thank you. Stay safe.